Imagine a massive Russian oil refinery that generates $50 million a day, and all of a sudden, in one heartbeat, it freezes solid in the winter. It was not struck by a drone or a missile. Rather, it failed because a single microchip worth all of $500 was nowhere to be found inside of Russia, all due to sanctions today. That is 100,000 to 1 crash in value. But this is the dirty secret that Moscow is terrified of. Their central bank is powerless against this friction. They can print rubles until the press melts, but they cannot print a sanctioned pressure valve. They certainly cannot print a new industrial base. And as simple as it looks, this is the silent death of a superpower. Inflation is not related only to interest rates, it also is set by the rust eating their machinery. A cheap, missing part can kill a $1 billion revenue stream, and that creates a math problem that cannot be fixed by propaganda. This is the hidden link between sanctions and total collapse, and in real time, we are watching an empire go bankrupt. But the most remarkable part is the delusion. The Kremlin tells its people that they are headed for a great future. However, the facts speak for themselves. The Putin regime is driving Russia into the abyss, and at this point, there is no way to get back on track because Vladimir Putin is no longer running the show. He is merely gripping a steering wheel that came off in his hands many miles ago, and now he's too afraid to look down. My name is Dr. Jason Smart. I'm a National Security Advisor and a Kiev Post Special Correspondent. If you wish to be seriously informed as to what is happening globally, don't forget to subscribe right now and consider becoming a channel member. So, the war in Ukraine has very clearly changed what is prioritized now in warfare. Modern war now rewards iteration speed and strike volume, not massed firepower. Drones now drive destruction at scale. President Zelensky has confirmed that over 80% of Russian targets are now destroyed by drones. Compare that to 2022. You recall when the war first began, drones were considered novel, new, and nobody expected them to change the landscape of war. But today we see that artillery becomes supporting fire, and autonomous drones become the main weapon. The battlefield turns into production capacity, sensors, and iteration speed. All of this is measured in results. Ukrainian forces struck 819,737 confirmed hostile targets in 2025 alone. That converts to 2,246 targets every single day. And we should understand that all of this is about tempo, the upstream pressure that turns military loss into financial stress. Logistics failure becomes political failure, and that becomes financial failure. Daily strike tempo turns into budget stress because replacement costs scale faster than revenue. December 2025 was an interesting month. We saw an estimated 35,000 Russian personnel that were eliminated. Now, that works out to about an average of 1,129 personnel per day. Now, contrast that figure against the 820,000 annual targets that were struck, averaging 2,246 per day. The gap shows saturation of equipment, fortifications, and logistics, not only manpower losses. And when the machinery breaks, the forces behind the line start to stall. A destroyed truck raises delivery cost for everything behind the front lines. Replacing a depot spikes inventory cost and delays replenishment. War spending becomes industrial consumption at scale, and Russia has built a burn engine that eats labor and fuel. Today we see that there's only energy exports that keeps Russia's financial lifeline going, but that's becoming harder for Russia to maintain. Ukraine is turning verified hits into replacement speed, and that speed is now the strategic advantage the Ukraine holds. The Russians, they struggle with a massive bureaucracy. But more than that, Russia's suffering, especially right now with its drones. Keep in mind, Iran is their major partner. But Iran today is having its own problems back home. What's going on for the Russians invading Ukraine is not the Ayatollah's top priority. He's got his own headaches to deal with. But that's why Russia is in a difficult position. Russia was never into developing things like this. It did not develop the newest and the best. It copied a lot of weapons that are found in the West. It copied weapons that it found in the United States. But the Russians themselves are good at copying, not creating new things, not developing new technologies. We've seen that their military throughout this entire war has suffered due to a lack of new technologies. But there's something else that is very important. We see that Russia suffers from centralized rationing. and that thereby creates bottlenecks in the learning process and also stalls tactical iteration. Now, autocracies, though, generally have that problem. That is not unique only to Russia. Autocracies are famous that they can draft men, but they cannot draft the innovation that they really desperately need. But there's a reason that the Russians also don't love innovation. Innovation that usually means that there is going to be a trail, that corruption will be harder to implement. And if you're a Russian bureaucrat, are you really looking for the best way to serve your state? Or are you looking for the best way to make a buck? And we see within Russia that interest of making sure you can squeeze some more money out of the system is far more important than the outcome of this war. Now, contrast that to what we see in Ukraine. President Zelensky's projected $35 billion production potential for 2026 signals massive industrial scale that Ukraine is preparing for. Funding is the only limiting region left. At this point, scalable systems attract capital better than any sort of promise ever could. And I myself have actually been surprised how many emails I get from businessmen who watch this channel who have reached out seeking more information about opening businesses in Ukraine or investing in Ukraine. It's pretty incredible, and it's great to see. We see that though this is just anecdotal evidence that I can present, you could consider that there's probably nothing analogous to it happening right now inside of Russia. Who talks about Russian innovation in this war or Russian drones? We talk about the Iranian drones, but we don't talk about the Russian drones. The fact is that the Ukrainians have the upper hand. The Ukrainians have opportunities in the future, which reminds me of something else. Please check out the first pinned comment below, and you'll see how you can help me to get the Ukrainian soldiers what they need to defeat Russia, stay alive, and be able to hopefully return soon to their families. Thank you. And if you've ever checked out that first pinned comment, also see how we can connect on social media. I look forward to your invitation. Thanks. Now, Russia faces another problem that is also unique from Ukraine's and unique from Western countries. We see that they have a very rigid system. That's probably not surprising. Everything operates under incredibly rigid command. Everything works through a pipeline. Recruiting operators from universities and the IT sector, they look smart on paper. People would think that the Russians would want them in their military, but reports say that typically they are not used for the skills. Though they have high-tech skills, they're often deceived and sent to join infantry assaults. That destroys scarce skills and collapses the learning curve that makes drone warfare scalable for the Ukrainians. High-skilled people hedge risk by emigrating or hiding. And so the ones that are stuck joining the military, it doesn't turn out well for them. Ukraine, fortunately, is far wiser than that. But there's something else also going on simultaneously. And it's not just that Russia kills off its scientists. It's also that today the sanctions are choking Russia. It's making it impossible to get the necessary components and disrupting production. And every lost learning cycle becomes lost future output. Mixing these two things together, the lack of both the scientists as well as the lack of the necessary parts, how can Russia get ahead? How can Russia hope to compete with the West? Today, there is no hope for that. Russia does not have the capacity and will not anytime soon have the capacity. But there is another aspect of this as well. The daily attacks that we see are turning into money problems for the Russians. And those money problems are something that Russia really is struggling to deal with. Now, Russia has a lot of cost. It's going through a lot of soldiers every single year. But going through so many soldiers, it also means that they have to pay a lot of people. They have to pay the ones that live to keep going. Every single month, they get paid about $2,000 to be in the front. But they also have to pay incredibly large sums of tens of thousands of dollars to any family of a Russian soldier that gets killed in action. Now, that probably also explains why there's so many cases of Russian commanders hiding the bodies or abandoning them of their fallen comrades, so the state doesn't have to pay them out. But what's sort of interesting about this entire system is that Russia thinks this is normal. Russia thinks that it could compete with the West, could compete with Ukraine, that are technologically advanced countries that value the sciences. If you look back at the Soviet Union, you'll notice something where Ukraine stands out. Ukraine was known for producing some of the smartest scientists in the Soviet Union. And we can see the evidence of that today. Those genes apparently stayed in the local population. Today, Ukraine has incredibly skilled people. And today, they are protecting themselves and their country, but they're also building the framework for a future country, a country that will be a technological leader. That's something that, once again, Russia cannot claim. Russia, in the parts of Ukraine that is taken, that is illegally, temporarily occupying, has destroyed those areas. Just look what they look like. There is nothing left there. That's what it's like when the Russian world comes to visit you. That's what it's like when Vladimir Putin pays you a visit. Ukraine, on the other hand, is building. It's building technology. It's building innovation. Ukraine is building a better future. But Russia, given the problems that it has, the internal constraints that it's facing, the serious economic problems that are bearing down on it today, it's very clear that it'll not be able to catch up. So when you consider how much more advanced Ukraine is at this point compared to Russia, it's sort of incredible to sometimes see the reports that come out. The reports that clearly show that many people in the West do not appreciate what this war is really about. Consider recently the headline that came out in Global Firepower. It totally ignores that you can build weapons, but that doesn't mean that you're going to win a war. And that's why they ranked Russia as the second strongest army in the world, Ukraine in the 20th place. But why is it then that the second army in the world has failed to beat the 20th army in the world for 4 years now? Why is it that the second army in the world is taking losses more than 3 times higher than the 20th army? We see that real power today is how fast you can replace what you lose, and not how many more targets you have that your enemy will soon destroy. But for Russia, things are about to get worse. And check out this video, and you'll see how this is fitting to what we're talking about this week. As always, thank you for supporting Ukraine.